Here we are on the Riviera 465 SUV, and we want to spend a few minutes just to talk about the C-Zone system, which is really at the heart of the vessel. It's how you control everything, and I just want to show everyone how simple it is to use, and it is absolutely an asset to any yacht that's got one. This really is the heart of the boat, and this is the biggest screen on the boat here in the galley. There is a wireless interface as well, so I can actually get this screen on my iPad.
Okay.
And that's built in with the boat. You just have to download the app. All right, so this here is basically the main page. They call it the favorites page. It comes set from the factory looking like this. For example, all boat lights on and off, we can do that. You can probably see on camera all the lights dimming around the entire vessel, and I just hit this one button and that turns everything on and off in one hit, which is really great. I can also come on board and just go pop and just turn every air conditioner on or every air conditioner off as well. Entertainment stuff here as well, so we can turn on all the entertainment just with one touch. You can start and stop your generator from this main page. You can see how much battery charge you have in your house bank.
Let's say I'm in bed and and 2 o'clock in the morning, my batteries are too low. I need to fire it up. Hopefully you don't need in that situation. Can I start that from my iPad?
Yeah, so the iPad controls, as I said, is really just a mirror of this thing over here. Like all the circuits that's available to you on C-Zone, like the hard-mounted C-Zone panels, will actually be available to you on your iPad as well.
Wonderful.
So all those circuits. So that's actually maybe a really good segue to talk about.
Or if we've left some lights on, I can turn them off before going to sleep too.
Exactly, yeah. And there's actually a really great night mode. So there's this sleep mode over here. And despite what some people think it means, it actually means going to bed. Not like putting the boat to sleep. It's like you're going to sleep, right? And what do you want the boat to do and how do you want it to react? So Riviera has made this custom mode where you just hit this one button right here, and you'll notice that the lights don't necessarily turn off in every cabin.
Forward cabins, for example, are still on.
Yeah, so here's an example of a light that has turned on here, but
I can see
lights.
right now, like low lights that don't draw a lot come on.
Yeah.
But don't overpower the boat and don't overuse the batteries.
Exactly. So it'll turn off a lot of the systems that kind of make noise that you don't need in the middle of the night from coming on, but it'll also limit the lighting to 20% generally as well. So if you do need to walk through a cabin, turn a light on in a bathroom, because every single thing on this boat is connected
I love
through
the
C-Zone.
technology in this.
Yeah,
they can really cool.
With just some pretty basic programming, they set it up in such a way that you go to your bathroom in the middle of the night and you're not hit with 100% brightness. It knows if you're in sleep mode, you hit that button and it'll actually limit that to just a low light, to just enough to kind of use the facilities and without waking you up too much.
But it'll keep my refrigeration going and freezers going, the basics on that front as well.
Yeah, exactly. So the way that Riviera like to program their C-Zone systems from the factory is actually the refrigeration is one of the things they've decided to just leave to the user. So in any of the modes that you select to put your boat in, refrigeration is generally just left alone. They've found that over time, they've learned their customers all are very, very different on the refrigeration front.
Right.
So that's one is if you are leaving the boat and you're turning your boat over to a dock unattended mode, which means you're basically walking off and leaving the boat alone. If you've left your fridges on, your fridges will actually stay on. If you've turned them off, it won't turn them back on in any scenario unless you've asked for it, right? Because it is such a personal thing. So you see also along the top of this screen over here, you've got all these larger buttons up here. If you press and hold this one, for example, so the cruising mode is something that turns the entire vessel on, ready to go. So all the circuits that it believes you're going to need are all going to be on and ready for use. And then the next one along is dock unattended. So this is the one that you press when you're leaving the boat, and you may have heard all those battery switches going clunk, 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 and shutting down. One of the neat things it does actually is leave some of the lighting, the low-level lighting on in the
check this
outside.
Out. So that automatically turned on some lights, some of the exterior lights. So now it gives you a timed moment to get yourself your shoes on, grab the rest of your bags, and then walk off the boat. How long is that time? Because we used it last night, and it felt like it was about a 2-minute delay.
It's 120 seconds.
120 seconds, okay.
That's what it's programmed for, yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was really handy. We were just wrapping up and putting our shoes on, and we were off the boat, and all of a sudden, look back, everything was off. I also see on here, you have some tank monitoring. You got your freshwater tank on this main screen, which is always nice to see. You got your stated charge on the house battery. And then if I was on shore power, which we are, you can see that right away, your 2 lines and the amp draw.
Yep.
And then if we flipped over to the generator, it's all right here, and it looks very simple to understand and use. So sometimes, like I'm on my own boat. Okay, what's my fridge drawing right now? Okay, what's the stereo doing? What are some different systems using in that moment? How can we see that on this system?
Yeah, so the boat's made up of circuits, essentially, right? So a circuit is a way to turn something on, and it's also the load in which it's turning on. So together, those are the circuits, and we're going to be able to control those through this page right here. We go down to control, and this is really getting into the guts of the system. So this is essentially every circuit on the boat. As you can see, there's lots of them.
And that's combined AC and DC circuits, not just a DC or AC system.
Yeah, so this is all of them, and we can actually drill down if we wanted to just look at some things on the AC side. So we go to AC, and then in here we can actually go to AC refrigeration. In this particular case, all we have is the ice maker.
Amazing.
Because the other fridges are actually DC and run off the lithiums. So if we go to DC, and then we go to refrigeration. So here's our fridges right here. And I can actually hit on my galley fridge. And because everything runs through a C-zone module, every single circuit is being monitored. So I can see that I've turned this thing on 27 times now. And yeah, I can see what the voltage is on it as well, right? So that's kind of nice to have that right there at your fingertips. There's also a monitoring page in here as well. So right now we have our house battery, port auxiliary, and starboard start battery all living in here together. And we can actually see the current that's being drawn from them.
One of the things I see here is you actually have an AH remaining, so your amp hours remaining. So the owner of this boat actually added an extra lithium battery from the factory. So it came, what did it come standard with?
I think it came standard with 210.
That's correct, yeah. And then he added a third one, which it looks like you've already programmed. And in theory, adjustable if somebody wanted to add even more to it.
Oh, absolutely.
You can just go into the system here, automatically recalculates it, and you have a whole new, different screen there for that.
Yeah, and one thing I might actually add to that, we were talking about the user-friendly nature. It's kind of been set up to not have to think too much and too deeply about things.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, your state of charge, which is generally given as a percentage, in most cases it's up to the user to kind of know what type of batteries they have, how deeply they can discharge them, what the state of charge is. They shouldn't go below 50 or 20 or 30, depending on, what kind of battery they have. What they do here at Riviera is they calculate all that for you, and this state of charge is actually designed to go down to 0, and then the reserve capacity left in them at the 0 point is what the safe amount left for the batteries are.
Oh, smart.
So yeah, so what we're looking at here now, amp hours remaining, the way it's been programmed for user friendliness, so you don't have to think about any of that, is that's just the usable amp hours.
Usable, excellent.
Usable
okay.
amp hours, exactly. So what we actually have is 3 times 150 amp hour batteries. So what we have is a real capacity of 450, but the usable is 315 if we want to do the responsible thing and look after our batteries and make sure they don't go too deep, right? So all we need to know is that we can take it down to 0, and then we're at the point they're still safe, and then we come back up from there.
That's great.
Yeah.
And again, Riviera just making it easy for the customer.
Easy.
And here you can see right there how easy that is.
You don't have to know anything about batteries and state of charges and battery chemistries and the do's and the don'ts and the pitfalls and the gotcha moments.
Yep. And you're not actually draining the battery. That's a brilliant system.
Yep, they built in the reserve capacity into the programming.
Anything else on this system, just as a brief overview, that you find that you like?
Well, I think this page is pretty handy. So this one here will show you that your shore power is connected. And if we were to turn the generator on, and if you keep your camera where it is and just keep an eye on that screen, I can start the generator from this other remote switch up top. Even though I can do it on C-Zone, I'm going to leave this page alive. So when the generator does start, you'll actually see that it's going to recognize that, and there it goes. It's found it, it sees it's got power, and it will actually switch over to generator because it's the larger, more capable power source for the boat. And it's auto-enabled here, which means it'll automatically switch between these two sources. And
there's no switches I have to do. There's nothing I have. There's nothing. Now I can just disconnect my shore power. Know that there's no current going through it. As long as you've turned it off from the dock as well. But on the boat side, it's safe to retract and bring in.
Exactly. And as you can see, it's still monitoring what's coming in from the shore, but this has now got some numbers displayed here under the generator. So the generator is on and connected, and if we were curious to see what's actually physically connected, we can go to the AC mains page and it'll actually show us what's going on. So we can shut that down, and the reverse is going to happen. That's just going to switch back over to shore power. Let's close that circuit. We're back on shore, and if I select that, then the data for this shore power is going to be displayed here. So this is the same data that we see on that home screen.
So it's also important to know, I think it's one of the things that can get people hung up is they look at this and they say, oh, my shore power is on right now. I need to push that off.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things as an quick education piece with an owner is saying, no, don't touch that. Just leave it on auto enable.
Yes.
It'll automatically switch off the shore power, switch on the generator power for the boat. All you got to do is make sure that you've got the power off the dock, bring the cord in.
Exactly.
You don't have to play with those buttons.
Yes. If you're in the habit of starting a generator before you even unplug your shore power, which isn't a bad way to go, then yeah, you can just pull that cord in and it'll already be disconnected if it's all left in the automatic mode.
Let's say you lose power. This system has a failure for some reason. Is there a way that I can manually turn things on or off? Is there another way to turn off a fridge or turn off other electronics?
Absolutely. Great question, because this is really one of the first things I think as a Riviera owner and a owner of a boat with a C-zone is how those circuits are connected into the system. Because ultimately, even though it is a digital system, at some point it does switch over to analog and there is a physical power wire that turns something on. So right above my head is a really good place to start.
Okay.
So there's a bunch of modules. Let's get that out of the way. There's a bunch of modules around the vessel.
And modules, when you say modules, these are basically brain boxes for zones of the boat.
That's right.
So for example, this box that we're going to look at here would be a box for this area.
More or less, yeah. So the owner's manual for the Rivieras are fantastic, the best manuals I've ever seen.
Okay.
And they have a drawing of the C-zone network on the vessel. So it'll show you where all of these are located. So here's one of them, and there's a few of them down forward, and there's a bunch of them in the engine room as well. So these are all the circuits. So for example, we want to look at saloon overhead lights, right? So that's this guy right here.
Yeah.
So if for whatever reason this system didn't work, you can override this into the on position and it'll actually automatically energize that circuit. So I can actually turn that on.
Look at that.
And that was a really good one to show you because
everything's off.
You can see it right now, like in real time, how it's turned that circuit on. So that's basically saying, okay, I'm going to take the power and directly feed it into this circuit and turn that thing on. It's like a light switch almost.
Yeah.
So that's if you need to do that, you can override it. And if something's not working, like if a circuit, is just not coming on, C-zone will actually recognize that, just like it's done here.
Yeah, I see that.
So we can, it's shown you that it's recognized during the manual bypass.
Yep.
But let's just say the fuse was blown. So what I'm going to do is just pull the fuse out, which would emulate a blown fuse. It may just tell you, which it just did,
There you go.
that it has a blown fuse, right? So you can go right in there and replace it. These are generally labeled with the room first. So if it's saloon, then I'll go to saloon. So here it is here, and I can actually turn this on. A quick tap.
Oh, there you go.
We'll turn it on. And if we go back up to the that location where we pulled the fuse, another little indicator that it's actually live is that little green light is on. So that means, hey, I've got a signal from the brain to basically energize this circuit.
Yep.
And that shows you that indeed is on right now.
That's awesome.
That's been told to be in the on position.
And again, I look at this now and I can see saloon lights are on.
Yeah.
I can see the amp draw that it's pulling at the highest setting. Thank you for that. That I think is just one of those things that I think a lot of people will have a question about, and now you can see how simple those steps are.
And you might see there's a couple of aftermarket labels, and they're actually the Sonox and the Aft MFD. So when we chose,
so you actually have extra room here for.
There's some spares in here, and even if there wasn't, we can add extra modules into the system.
Nice.
So being trained in this stuff allows us to actually patch right in to one of these modules, and we can access these channels. And then through the programming tool, we can actually put these things on this system. So upgrades. And installations like that are done after the fact, we can bake right into the screens and right into the the OEM kind of style of being able to turn things on and off. That it just feels like it has been there forever.
And if I understand it correctly, you can do that just sitting at your desk on your computer. You can go into the system, make those changes
Yes.
and then just a simple input into the boat once
right.
which the boat's in port or you need to go to the boat.
Yeah, so we have access to all the configuration files that actually run these systems. So at any time, if anyone actually has a question about how their boat works, I don't even need to be on the boat.
Nice.
Just by looking at the software, I can actually chase all of the circuits and just see how they all interconnect and talk to each other just with the file. I can open it up and have a look, and I can help out over the phone.
Okay.
And kind of tell you, no, this thing's connected to here, and if you do this and that, it should work a certain way.
Thanks very much for going through that right now, showing us how easy it is to do any manual override you need to do, all the things that you can add into the systems, the simplicity of it, but also if you needed to do some work on it, you have the ability to do it and do it remotely as well.
Yeah, absolutely. About a year ago, we were introduced to these C-Zone systems, and we've hit the ground running. We've come a long way.
We've come a long way.
At that time, very, very quickly, I got on board with it and realized that this is the best way for a boat to be built.
Can you retrofit it to my boat?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely.
I'm like, I see all this technology. I'm like, these are the things that I think are propelling us into the future, and Riviera is doing such an awesome job at that.
Yeah.
And
From a boat building perspective, it's actually fantastic as well, because it saves a lot on weight because of all the copper wires that have to run all throughout the vessel.
Yeah.
You think about those main, points of power on a boat,
Yeah,
and then
just
you've got
one
like
of the boxes
individual
in the
wires
box.
all over the boat. But this one here is, you have a boat that has local control modules close to the equipment, so it's only short little runs, and then they're all interconnected with just a communication wire.
Brilliant.
Right? So turning things on and off can be done digitally, but save a hell of a lot in weight and complexity with the wiring loops. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for watching our video on the C-Zone systems. If you have any questions whatsoever about purchasing a Riviera boat or getting your hands on a boat like this, please don't hesitate to reach out to Freedom Marine International Yacht Sales. If you have any questions whatsoever about a C-Zone system that you may already be installed on your boat, anything of that nature on a technical level, please don't hesitate to reach out to Revolution Yacht Service.